All right, we're into week 4 now at Fantasy Turf 4. Let's go ahead and take a look at how week 3 did and how we've shaken things up with the rankings. As always, we start with Division 1, the Guinea Pigs. You've got Shelter Dogs for Veterans beating out Game Changer 365, 111-12 to 83-56. CC3PO with a decisive win there, 126-54 against the Comfort Zone 95-90. Patriot Drip, I mess that up every week, 157.02 to 92.02s, if I'm being honest. That's the division high for the week. MEI Mouse Fan Travel Becky losing 98.74 to Jake Boyko, 135.02. Cardboard Crusaders 85-26 losing to later named 116.78. Let's take a look at your rankings now. Jake still sitting at the top, undefeated 3-0, no change there. Patriot Drip is coming in second. CC3PO, if I'm being honest, and Shelter Dogs for Veteran rounding up the top half. MEI and Mouse Fan Travel is sitting in 6th with Game Changer 365 and 7th. Later named Comfort Zone and Cardboard Crusaders. Our previous Division 1 winner is sitting at 0-3. Uh-oh. Division 2 any given Sunday. High scoring week here. We've got Men's Alliance 111-22 to Henry D Music's 156-84. That's a tough loss. Uncle Mike B 119-12 beating out an Athlete's Journey. And that's a spelling mistake on my part. Apologies. 119-12 to 94-16. A very close one here. Life and Liberty 86-36 to Susan's 85-94. That game was going to come up here in a little bit. Jack DiBattista 133-32 against Tracy Norton 86-20. And Wholehearted Foundation beating out Mike Trester with a close one there, 110-02 to 109-60. That's a very close one. Again, high-scoring week here in Division 2. Let's take a look at your rankings. Staying in first, Uncle Mike B, 3-0. Oh, and I apologize, I didn't put the changes in there. So you're sitting at 3-0. Wholehearted Foundation is 2-1. Sitting in number 2 with Jack T. Batista at number 3, Gridiron Goddess at number 4, and Mike Trester at number 5. Jamori, Life and Liberty, 2-1, still number 6, Men's Alliance in 7th, Henry D Music, Athlete's Journey, and Tracy Norton in 10th there. 2-0-3 teams in this division. Division 3, the Goats. You got Brian with a tough loss there, 106-56 to Noro Coffee, 137-38. Bird Management 99-32 losing to Flurry Sports, the previous Division 3 winner, 112-64. Dan Brown Jr. 137-14 to Sports Idiot Nations 118-82. That's a tough loss for Jonathan Mohan over there, TI. Renee Neal 66-12. Mariella Falls Wedding and Events 104-72. Renee is our previous champion, defending champion. She'll come up here in the rankings in just a second. And Teamer 122-90 with a win against Chicago Jorts at Steve Carlson 117-92. Let's take a look at the rankings now. Mariella Falls sitting at 3-0. That's Rich. I apparently messed up the changes here too. I apologize on that. Lack of sleep's catching up. Steve Carlson sitting in second in the division. Noro Coffee, Flurry Sports, and Teamer rounding out the top 5. Starting off at 6 is Dan Brown Jr., followed by Sports Idiot Nation, Brian, Bird Management, and Renee Neal Photography. Our previous champion, our Fantasy Turf War Season 1 champion, Renee Neal, is now sitting at 0-3 and is probably in jeopardy here of making a run this year. Division 4, the Monarchs. All right, starting things off, you've got the Art of Silence beating out Zynga Prince 80-52 to 69-02. That's a low-scoring game. Fantasy Couriers with a tough loss, 110-36 to 148-52. They're the defending champs, taking a loss this week for their division at least. Sprague Works 99-22 to Alpha Clash. That's a mix-up on the logos. Goodness gracious, I apologize there. 118-42, 99-22. Rad Dad Network 129.56 to Prolific Games and Collectibles, who I have their new logo and I put it in the wrong spot, 103.18. And Dragon's Horde 136.04 beating out Tank Talk 97.68. Taking a look at the rankings here. Good, got the logos right on this one. And I messed up the changes again. Goodness gracious golly. All right, Dragon's Horde 3-0, sitting there with a 415.96 on the points scored. Grad Dad Network is coming in second. Loftside Banter at third. Fantasy Couriers fourth. Alpha Clash fifth. Prolific Games and Collectibles in sixth. Tank Talk seventh. Art of Silence, Spragworks, and Zynga Prints rounding out. No undefeated teams in this division. That's nice. All right, we've got ourselves a new record here. We've got smallest margin of victory. Previous was 0.5 points. This week it was set by two teams. Same week, different matchups. Life and Liberty and Uncle Mike B, both of you won by 0.42, so narrowly escaping victory there. So you two are currently the record holders, and we'll see how that stays over the year. Again, the previous record in the I think of all time in Fantasy Turf War was 0.08. We have four undefeated teams. Mariella Falls Wedding and Events, that's Richard. Dragon's Horde, that's Zach. Mike B, that's Mike. And Jake, that's Jake. Again, we've never had a team go undefeated all season long. So we are down to four, which I think is faster. We got down to four faster than we did last year. So interesting. Total points for division, you can see it's relatively close. For Division 1 and 2, they are pretty much the same. Division 3 and 4, starting to pull away quite a bit. Division 3 is definitely the highest there. And this is just all points scored from that division all weeks. These are your high-lows. So this is the highest score ever scored in that division and lowest score ever scored in the division. So you've got the highest, it's sitting at 184.30. Lowest is a 66.12. So you got to get kind of a sense of where the averages are. And speaking of averages, you've got the weekly averages. So when I say this, this is the average score it was this week. So if you scored above it and lost, it is bad luck. If you scored below it and won, good luck. So that low-scoring game there, I think between Don Hall and I forget the other team, but that was a very low-scoring game, and you scored less than average on both teams, and someone still won. So, you know, just the way it works, but it's always fun to watch. Overall averages, this is what I tell people is if you score this many points in any given week, not just this past week, any given week, you should expect to win. So anywhere between 108.69 and 111. So it's about a 3-point different, 3.4 point swing. If you score in that zone, you should expect to win. So keep an eye on that. It'll change a little bit as the season goes on, but it'll stay somewhere, you know, pretty close again with that 4-point margin there. So just keep that in mind. Overall standings, everyone's favorite part. So we have the overall standings and the changes this week. I did get those slides right, so we got that going for us. So here you are, top 8. You have Dragon's Horde, Jake Boyko, Uncle Mike B, Mariella Falls Wedding and Events, Steve Carlson, Rad Dad Network, Patriot Drip 76, and Noro Coffee. 4 3-0 teams. Everyone else is 2-1. Some big jumps just because it's early with the way the season has played out. So you see a jump there from Noro Coffee. They jumped 14 spots to get to that spot this week. It's not the biggest swing. You'll see that in a couple slides. But you can start to see the trends forming of who's scoring more points and who's getting away with some wins there. All right, 9-16, CC3PO, Wholehearted Foundation, Flurry Sports, Jack DiBattista, Loftside Banter, Gridiron Goddess, If I'm Being Honest, and DBHL, Florida. That's Teamer. There's a 17-point jump there. You have the Fantasy Couriers coming in at 17th. Mike Trester, Shelter Dogs for Veterans, Life and Liberty, MEI and Mouse Fan Travel, Men's Alliance. So there's the last of our hosts there. Gridiron Goddess was on the previous slide. Henry D Music is 23, and Dan Brown Jr. Again, I apologize for that slide. Coming in at 24th, and you're starting to get into the 1 and 2 teams. All right, 25-32, you've got Sports Idiot Nation, Alpha Class TCG, Brian, Prolific Games and Collectibles, that's Roberto, Bird Management, Tank Talk, Game Changer 365, and Art of Silence. Interesting. Game Changer 365 has about 70 points scored less for than against, which means they've just gotten some good matchups there. All right, and rounding out the top 40, we've got later named Spragworks, Zynga Prints, The Comfort Zone and Athlete's Journey, Cardboard Crusaders, Tracy Norton and Renee Neal Photography. Again, coming in at 40, finishing out the group is Renee Neal. 0-3, our defending champion. See if she can get back into competition here. And let's take a look at week 4. Starting off in Division 1, you've got Shelter Dogs for Veterans against Jake Boyko. That should be a good one. Jake is one of 4 undefeated teams, and Shelter Dogs is our host, of course, Cameron Bassett. CC3PO against Cardboard Crusader. Game Changer 365, again, he's gotten some good matchups there against Patriot Drip. Patriot Drip had a great week last week. MEI and Mouse Van Travel, Becky playing against later named. Both of you are 1-2. Justin over at the Comfort Zone, and if I'm being honest, 1-2 versus 2-1. That should be a decent matchup. Let's take a look at Division 2. We've got Any Given Sunday. Men's Alliance, our host, one of our hosts, Adam Dove, going up against his rival there for the week at least, Pastor Jack, Wholehearted Foundation. These guys are good friends, but they'll probably be mortal enemies just for this week, though. Henry D. Music playing against Tracy Norton. Uncle Mike B, the other undefeated team, playing against Jamori, Life and Liberty. That'll be a good one to watch. Athlete's Journey against Jack DiBattista. And our last host, Gridiron Goddess, playing against Mike Trester. That's both 2-1 teams. That'll be a decent matchup to watch. Division 3 with our Goats. Brian facing off against Jonathan, Sports 88 Nation. Both of you are 1-2. That'll be a good one to watch. Bird Management against Noro Coffee. Dan Brown Jr. going against Teamer. And I believe this was a playoff rematch here. It's Renee Neal Photography against Flurry Sports. I'll have to go double check that. But Renee is desperate for a win here this week, I think. So maybe she can pull it off. Mariella Falls Wedding and Events 3-0 going up against Steve Carlson. This is one I'm going to keep an eye on. Steve has been a competitor so far. He's a rookie this season in Fantasy Turf War, but Rich is not over at Mariella Falls Wedding and Events. So this will be a good one to watch. And I believe they're in other leagues together too. So that's a good rivalry. And of course, Division 4, the Monarchs. DJ Hall, The Art of Silence against Loftside Banter. The Fantasy Couriers, 2-1, defending division champs, going up against Alpha Clash TCG. Sprague Works, 1-2 against Rad Dad Network, 2-1. Zynga Prince against Dragon's Horde. Dragon's Horde is starting to do a little bit of the trash talk in there with the 3-0, so we'll see if he can stay in that number 1 spot. And Tank Talk against Roberto, Prolific Gaming Collectibles. Both of you are 1-2 and should be a good one to watch. Tank is, of course, a good collaborator with ours. We do the Start Sit on both of our shows using our Start Sit coins, so those are always fun. All right, that's going to do it for this week. If you are excited, make sure you're following along on all channels and make sure you're staying up to date with the latest. And we will see you all on the Tuesday show, and I'm looking forward to everything else coming this season. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.